So we are on Lamed Ches Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. Hechi Dami Macha. So we've been talking about Chetzkas Abat, and what we're talking about is Ruvain owned the property, and Shimon is now claiming that it belongs to him. He bought it, or he gave it to him, whatever the claim is, and he says he has a chazaka. So Shimon says he has a chazaka. He's been here for 3 years. The way Ruvain avoids Shimon getting to keep the property is by making a macha, by protesting, by saying before the 3 years are up, by the way, I want to inform everyone that this property that Shimon is sitting on, it's not his property, it's mine. And therefore, when Shimon comes at the end of 3 years and says, I've been sitting on this property and it's mine, Reuven says to him, where's the shtar? And he says, I lost it. He says, but I made a macha, and you should have held on to the shtar. If all that Reuven said to make his macha, to make his protest against Shimon's chazaka, is he said that Shimon is a ganav. Lo havi macha, that's too general. Just saying that Shimon is a ganav doesn't say who he stole from, what he stole from. It doesn't mean anything. However, planya gazalna, who did not gazlanusa, but if instead Reuven said that Shimon is a gazlan, and the reason why he's a gazlan because he took my ara, he took my land. He's sitting on my land, but it's not his. And tomorrow I'm taking him to a dintayra. Havi macha. That's a macha. So there's 2 pshatim in the Rashbam. The first pshat in the Rashbam says that this last part is bedavka. That he has to say, Reuven has to say the entire macha. Not only does he have to say that Shimon is a gazlan and that he stole from me, he has to say that tomorrow I'm going to take it away from him. But if he just said that he's a gazlan because he took my thing, the way the Rashbam says it, that would just be like he's bad-mouthing him. But he's not saying it as a testimony, and it wouldn't be macha. But the Rashbam says the ikab shot is that this last shot of Lamacha Tavanale Bedina is in general not, that's just a embellishment, which it's not really the main part. The main part is what he said before. That he said that Shimon is a gazlan, and he took my karka. That itself is a macha. And the last part is just explanation. That because he's a gazlan and he took my karka, I'm going to take him to din. But even if he doesn't say that part, it would be a sufficient macha. So, Gemara Vaita on Lamed Tes Amud Aleph. Amar, if Reuven is the original owner, said to Edom, Lei Temrule. He made a macha, but he said, don't mention anything to Shimon who's sitting on the land. What's the din? It's a machlekes. Amar Zid, Hak Amar Lei Temrule. Zid said, what kind of macha is this? The whole point of the macha is that the person who's being machzik will know that he has to hold on to the shtar. But Reuven told these Edom that he said the macha to, don't say anything to him. So therefore it's not a good macha. Rapapa Amar, Rapapa says no. The point of making a macha, and even though and I'd like to see later on, see machlekes how many people you have to make it to, but the point is not that those Edom are shluchim to go tell the owner that the machzik, that it's not his, that Reuven is making a macha. They just are going to go talk about it, and then other people will tell it to him. So therefore, chaver islay, chaver the chaver islay. So that's also a sufficient macha. Rapapa is a user of Zvid. He said even if the person making the protest says to the witnesses, don't say anything, it's still a good macha. Don't say anything to him because they'll say it to someone else. Amru lei le'amrinan lei. What if the Edom, if Reuven made his macha, he made his protest. He said, this is not Shimon's land, it's my land. And he didn't say any instructions to the Edom, but the Edom told him, we're not going to say anything to him. Amr Zvid, Haka Amru lei le'amrinan lei. Zvid again, he says the same thing as if the the owner, the original owner, Reuven, had said, "Don't say anything." If the witnesses say they're not going to say anything, that's the same result, and it's not the story. The macha is not going to get to the person who's machzik, and therefore it's not a good macha. Rav Papa said, but it's still a good macha because all the witnesses said is they're not going to say it directly to Shimon who's holding on to it, but they'll say it to Shimon's neighbor and to Shimon's cousin, and the word will get to Shimon, and therefore it's a sufficient macha. Again, the same svara that the friends will get the word out to the muhsik. So that's the first two cases where both Rav Papa and Rav Zvid argue on both of them. Amalahu, but what if this case? What if Reuven made his macha to the Edom, and he told the Edom, "Don't let these words pass your lips. I don't want you to say anything to anyone about this." Amar Rav Zvid, Rav Zvid said, you told them not to say anything about it. So this is going to be, the Rav Papa doesn't argue on this. He says the whole reason why Rav Papa had argued in the first case, where Reuven said to him, "Don't say anything to Shimon," is because the Edom will say to a different person. But over here he said, "Don't say anything to anyone." Therefore the word will never get to Shimon. And therefore it's not a good machal, even according to Rav Papa. What if the Edom said, "We are not going to mention the word"?
What's she looking for? A blanket?
Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa said, your mic is on. Not that it's bothering me, but I don't know what you're going to say. Yeah, you might give out HIPAA information. I don't want to hear it. So, Amar Rav Papa, even Rav Papa says now the same svara as Zvid, that the Edom said they're not going to repeat anything, so it's not going to be a good macha. Hunabred of Yeshua says in this case maybe you could be mechalik, even though Rav Zvid and Rav Papa both say where the Edom said they're not going to say anything, but he says no, maybe that's still a good macha. If in this case, since he wasn't instructed, the Edom were not instructed by the person, by Reuven, who was the original owner, not to say a word about it, to keep their lips zipped. It's just that they took upon themselves. They said, "We're not going to say a word about it." But no one instructed them. They don't have the Cherem de Rabbeinu Gershon. They're not allowed to repeat someone's secret. So they just have a kabbalah on themselves. But the same way they will kabbalah on themselves, they might not adhere to it so quickly. As everyone says, a secret is only a secret if there are two people and one of them is dead. Once someone hears something, unless he was instructed not to say anything, then it's always going to be, he's going to say it, and eventually the word will get to the muhsik, and therefore it's a good macha. So we had this discussion earlier from Rav in the Mishnah. Rav says b'shem Rav Nachman, it's not necessary to have the muhsik in front of you when you make a macha. Obviously, this whole question that we had earlier about what the different ways of how do you do it. Do you have to do it, whether you could do chavra the chavra isla, if he says, I'm not going to say it over, this is not, this is all on depending on this shita. We have to say, in our Mishnah, we have that Yehuda said, the second shita in our Mishnah was that the reason why we said Shaloshan, the Tanakama had said that you have to, if one is in Galil and it is Yehuda, and we said all the different pshatim about that he holds that it ended up saying that we machash b'fan of Havimach. I'm sorry. Amar Yehuda lo Amar Shaloshan Melekdesh Baspami v'Yachshashana v'Yelzu v'Yedushana v'Yavel Shana Achers. Yehuda had disagreed, and he said the reason why you have a Cheska Shaloshanim is in case the original owner, Ruvain, is out in Spain, that he should get a year. It'll take a year for him to get the word. I mean, first Shimon is going to be machzik in the property for a year. Then it'll take a year for the word to get to Reuben out in Spain. Then it'll take Reuben a year to get back. And at that point, he could give the word. He can make his macha to Shimon. Why does Reuben have to travel all the way from Spain? They let him remain in Spain, and make a macha from there. So we see that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold that you can make a macha shalei b'fanav. Macha shalei b'fanav le'ad macha. He holds you have to be there in person. So and the Rashbam asks, but why are we asking kasha from Yehuda? What about the Tanakama? The Tanakama seems to be saying fakert that macha shalei b'fanav havi macha. So he says maybe Rava would understand that the Tanakama was saying a different pshat than what we had said before. So the Gemara. So he says no. Rabbi Yehuda is not saying that that Reuven must travel back from Spain in order to make a macha, because a macha shalei b'fanav is not a macha. But the Mishnah's Rabbi Yehuda is giving an eitzah tova. He could have really made his macha over there, but it'll remain with a problem. He's giving an eitzah tova. The nesi v'nishkal aru peri. He's giving an eitzah to Reuven that if he's going to stay in Spain and just make a macha from there, in the meantime, Shimon is going to keep on eating until Reuven comes back, and he says, it's my land, and he'll say, but I had a chazak, and he'll say, but I made a macha, and he'll bring the proof that he made the macha in Spain, but in the meantime, up until Reuven came back and brought his rayas, Shimon has been eating the pears, and if Shimon is going to be a muchzik on the pears, and in order for Reuven to get it out, he's going to have to make a din Torah. So better, he should come back himself and make the macha. At that point, will immediately eject Shimon from the land, and then he won't have to fight for the Paris after that point. The Gemara says this was so. Rav Nachman had said macha shaloi b'fanav habi macha, and Rava asked from Rabbi Yehuda. From the fact that Rava asked Rav Nachman from Yehuda, Bai says that Rava holds the macha shaloi b'fanav habi macha. You see that Rava holds macha shaloi b'fanav is not a macha. Ba'amar Rava macha shaloi b'fanav habi macha. We have a quote that Rava says fakert that it is a macha. The Gemara bought the shomer of Nachman savra savra. After Rava heard from Rav Nachman his answer to his kasha from Yehuda, then he agreed to Rav Nachman, and he turned around and he said, "Taka macha shalei b'fanav habi macha." He asked it as a question, but what he was given an answer, he taka agreed the macha shalei b'fanav habi macha. Rav Yotzei bar Chanina, Ashkechina Rav Yotzei bar Chanina, Talmid of the Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Yotzei bar Chanina found Talmid of Rabbi Yochanan. Amalhu, mi amar Rabbi Yochanan macha b'kam. Has Rabbi Yochanan never said how many people you have to make a macha in front of? Rav Chia bar Abba amar Rabbi Yochanan macha b'fnei shnayim. Rav Chia bar Abba said that Rabbi Yochanan had said that a macha has to be made in front of two. Rav Avo amar Rabbi Yochanan macha b'fnei shloisha. Rav Avo disagreed. He said Rabbi Yochanan had said it has to be in front of three. So let's say this machlokes of what Rabbi Yochanan said is really a machlokes of whether they hold like Rabba bar Rav Huna. The Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna. Kol milsa this Amar ba'apei tlasa less be mishum lishna bisha. The rule is that one is not allowed to say lishna bisha over here refers to rechilas. That one is not allowed to say over that someone said a lashon hara about you. And if you do so, it's rechilas. But if the lashon hara that had been said, let's say Shimon goes to Reuven and says Levi is saying lashon hara about you, that would be rechilas. But if Levi already said it to many people or to a certain amount of people, it's public knowledge that Levi already said it. Then it's not rechilas to bring it back to Reuven and tell him that it was said. So this Rabbi bar Rav Huna says that as long as this lashon hara that Shimon is bringing back to Reuven and said what's being said about him, was already said in front of three people. Once it's said in front of three people, it's already public. So then there's no more rechilas. He's just talking about something that's already public knowledge. So Manda Amar B'fnei Shnayim, the Manda Amar by us, who says that you have to make a macha only in front of two. Let's say the Rabbi Rav Huna. He doesn't hold like the Rabbi Rav Huna that says in order for something to be public, it needs to be in front of three. He holds even in front of two is sufficient. So therefore, just like Legabi Lashon Hara, something that is said in front of two people is considered to be public, and it's no longer a problem of rechilas. So too, if you make a macha in front of two people, it's considered to be public. It's chavra de chavra islay, and it's going to get back to the muchzik. Man the Amar b'fnei Gimel islay the Rabbi Barafin, and the other man the Amar who says that who says that you need three. That the quarter Rabbi Yochanan is saying that you need to say give macha in front of three. He holds like Rabbi Rav Huna that something is only public in front of three. So loy. No, it's not necessary that the machlokes of what Rabbi Yochanan said is totally whether he holds like Rabbi Rav Huna. The kula alma islu the Rabbi Rav Huna. Everyone holds something becomes public when it's said in front of three. This is the discussion. Manda Amar B'fnei Shnayim. The Manda says you only have to make a macha in front of two because of a macha shalei b'fanav lehavi macha. He holds that taka, not like we had said before, b'shem Rava and Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman had said, and Rava was masking too, that a macha doesn't have to be in front of the muchzik, but rather it does have to be in front of the muchzik. So therefore, you only need the edim as a raya that you made the macha. So therefore, you only need two. The one who says that macha shalei b'fanav is a macha, it has to be in front of three because it's not necessarily in front of the muchzik, and you want the word to get them. In order for it, everyone holds like Rabbi Rav Huna. In order for something to be public, it has to be in front of three, and therefore you have to do it in front of three, so that the word will eventually get back to the muchzik. So Gemara Iba is saying, or you could say the other way around. The kul yam macha shalei b'fanav havi macha. Everyone agrees that macha shalei b'fanav is a macha. V'hacha b'hakam b'fnei manda b'fnei bei sava sadusabina. That means you can make the macha shalei b'fanav, but the question is, why do you have to? That means, I'm sorry. Everyone agrees macha shalei b'fanav is a macha, and the question is, do you need the macha? Does it need to be specially publicized that it has to go in front of Gimel? One man says the only reason why you need two people there, the word's going to get out. Once you're saying it, it's directed toward this person, so people are going to mention it to him because he's the subject of this discussion. So people are going to bring it to him, and the only reason you need the two is Beis Savar Sadu Sabinan. You need Eidus. Mandam Gimel Kasavar Gilim El Sabinan. And the other mandam holds no. The reason for these edim is not just as a raya, but it's also to publicize. Without the publication, without a specific having three that are like Rabbi Rav Huna says, you need three in order to publicize. So that's why you need three here. But it's not just because of the edus. So therefore, that's why you need three. Guido Bar Menyumi. Havale Machiyusalim Chuy. Guido Bar Menyumi was an owner of property, and some other person was squatting on his property, and he had to make a protest, so the other person shouldn't have a chazak. Ashkechinu Rav Huna, L'chia Barav, L'Rav, Chilki Bar Tuvi. He found these three Goinim, the Haviyasvi, they were sitting together. Umachakamai, he made a macha in front of them. The Rashbam says it's not because B'dafki you need three, but there's not a psak on that earlier question if you need three or two. We're just saying the Ma'aser Kachaya that there happened to have been three people. He's coming to tell us a different thing. L'shana Hadar, the next year, a year later, he was back at the same bungalow colony, and he found the same three people sitting. Also, he came to make a macha in front of them again about the same property. Amrulay, so they all said back to him, Loy trichas hachi. Loy trichas. It's not necessary to make a macha. Hachi amarav, kivin shemichas shana rishana, shovein etzarach limchais. Once you made a macha in the first year, there's no need to go back and make another macha. As long as it's still within 3 years of your original, or within the first 3 years of the chazaka, you don't have to make a macha every year. Some say it wasn't all three of them that answered back, but it was just Chia Barav who answered. You don't have to make another. You don't have to make another macha. Zak the Gemara. Amrish Lakish Mishum Bar Kapara. Even though it's true that we said that someone who made a macha, who made a protest, an owner who made a protest against the Motzei, saying that it's his, he made it, he now has changed the onus that there's no chazakah, but every 3 years he has to make a new chazakah. That's his rule, that the macha only lasts for 3 years, but after 3 years it expires, and after 3 years, the person, the Motzei, already becomes lax about watching his star, and he's entitled to lose his star, and therefore he has to make another macha to toll the statute of limitations on his first macha. Toiba Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan asked the question. He mapped this. Yes, once Reuven already made a macha against Shimon, what's the purpose that he has to make another macha 3 years later? He already said you're a gazla, so you're responsible to watch it. You're responsible to watch your star. Why does he have to reinstate his macha? He's the just because Reuven made a macha, he made a protest. That doesn't prove that Shimon's a gazlan. Well, I understood that it's saying that he becomes a gazlan, and the gazlan is not able to make chazakah. But he's not a gazlan. Reuven is claiming that he's a gazlan, but it hasn't been determined. And the truth is, even if Shimon has to give in, we're just giving in because we can't prove one way or the other, and we say Reuven is the marakama, but he's not a gazlan, that he's not believed for anything. So that's why el kigazlan. It's saying kid gazlan yeshel chazaka. It doesn't mean gazlan yeshel chazaka, but someone who his rights to the property have already been questioned, can he make a chazaka? It's not saying that he is mamish a gazlan, but since there's been Reuven has already impugned his rights to the property, why should Reuven have to go back and make another macha? Shimon should be on notice that he should hold on to the shtar indefinitely. Amar Rava, Hilchas Tzarech Limchas B'Seif Kol Gimel B'Gimel. Rava Paskins tackle like this halacha, unlike what we just said. There's no such svara that we say he's treated as a gazlan, but rather Reuven does have to make another macha, because otherwise Shimon is entitled to lose his shtar. He forgets that there was a macha 3 years ago, and he allows the shtar to get lost. Tani bar kapara, irer. If someone made a macha, and then he came back and he made another macha, and then he made a third macha, each time 3 years in between each one. If each time it was the same claim, meaning after 3 years, Reuven came and said, this doesn't belong to him, and therefore Reuven has to, he says that Shimon there's a squatter on my land. And he kept on, he was consistent. 3 years later, he came back and said the same thing. There's no chazak. Vim lav, this is real, that's the din that we've said before. Obviously, if he makes a macha every 3 years, that's a good macha. But if not, meaning, if the tainus were different tainus, that means one time he said he was a gan. And then next time he came and said, no, I gave it to him as a oris. And the third time he came and said, no, I lent him money and he has it as a mashkin. And each time he's coming with a different taina, yeshel chazak. Then we say that the Motzei has a right to disregard these machos. Since they contradict each other, he could say, this guy is a liar. No one's going to listen to him, but I don't have to watch my star for a guy who's coming, and every year he changes his claim. So therefore, he's going to have a good chazak. Okay, we're going to stop over here, and tomorrow we're going to go on to other rules about how many people you have to say different halachic chaloisin, different kinyanim. Okay, Bez Shem. Well, tomorrow, what have we been doing? At 8:10?